Have you ever wondered why you crave a sugary donut, even when you know it's bad for you? Or how about this? Why can any kid just pick up a language, but learning calculus feels like climbing Mount Everest? Well, the answers aren't just in our choices. They're in a user's guide to the human mind that was written over millions of years of evolution. So today, we're going to crack open that guide and explore the revolutionary science of evolutionary psychology. But to really get there, we have to start with the one question that has pretty much shaped psychology for the last century. Is the human mind a blank slate when we're born, just waiting for the world to write on it? Or do we show up with some software already preloaded? For the longest time, the main answer in the social sciences was crystal clear, blank slate. This whole idea, often called the standard social science model, was the absolute bedrock of how we understood human nature for most of the 20th century. Okay, so what is this standard social science model really? Well, imagine a brand new computer, fresh out of the box. It's got the basic operating system, things like learning and reasoning, but zero apps installed. Every single thing, every belief, every skill, every preference has to be downloaded from the Culture App Store. The mind is just seen as this single, all-purpose processor that can handle whatever you throw at it. And this whole idea really boils down to two core beliefs. First, that the mind is a general-purpose learner, kind of like a single adjustable wrench that's supposed to fix the plumbing, build a shelf, and repair your car. And second, because the mind starts out empty, culture becomes the one and only author of our mental software. It writes all the instructions for how we think, feel, and act. The anthropologist Clifford Geertz just nailed this idea perfectly with this quote. See, in this view, the mind isn't a co-author of our story. It's just the paper that culture writes on. Information only flows in one direction, from the outside world in. The mind doesn't actively shape culture. It's simply a product of it.
But this very neat and tidy model, which was king for decades, it started to crumble. It just couldn't hold up under the weight of all this new evidence. From all corners of science, researchers were finding data that just didn't fit the blank slate picture.
And what everyone started to agree on was this. The mind is not a passive video camera just recording what happens. Research started to show that all organisms, including us, come factory-equipped with some knowledge about the world. Pre-installed software that helps us make sense of things right from day one. And look, this wasn't some gentle pushback. No, this was a full-on scientific rebellion. You had animal behaviorists showing that even simple creatures had these complex instincts. Linguists like Noam Chomsky argued that language was way too intricate to be learned from scratch. Neuropsychologists found specialized brain regions for different tasks. And anthropologists, by studying our deep past and modern hunter-gatherers, they found these universal patterns in human behavior that culture alone just couldn't explain. Just think about this for a second. It's a perfect example. Every healthy kid in any culture on Earth effortlessly learns to speak without any formal lessons. It just happens. But reading and writing, that takes years of hard, explicit schooling. Now, if the mind were a truly general-purpose learner, shouldn't both be equally easy or equally hard? This huge difference strongly suggests we have specialized, evolved machinery for spoken language, but not for the very recent invention of writing. So, with all these puzzles and contradictions piling up, it became obvious we needed a totally new way to think about the mind. A new framework was needed, one that could pull all these different findings into a coherent story. And that new framework was evolutionary psychology. This new perspective offers a completely different and way better analogy for the mind. So forget the blank slate, just toss that idea out. The mind isn't one general tool. It's much more like a Swiss Army knife, packed with all these different specialized tools. A blade for cutting, a corkscrew for opening bottles, a screwdriver, you get it. Each tool is expertly designed to solve a very specific, recurring problem our ancestors faced over and over again. Now, this new view didn't just pop up out of thin air. It was built on the shoulders of four giants, four huge moments in scientific progress. First, the cognitive revolution, which gave us the language of computers to describe the mind. Second, deep studies of our ancestral past and our primate cousins, which showed us the challenges our minds evolved to solve. Third, all that evidence against the blank slate we just talked about. And finally, a revolution in evolutionary biology itself. And this brings us right to the heart of it. Evolutionary psychology sees the mind as a collection of programs. You can think of them as a suite of pre-installed apps. Each app was designed by natural selection because it helped our ancestors solve a particular problem tied to survival and reproduction. So there are apps for finding a mate, for avoiding predators, for forming alliances, and for figuring out what other people are thinking. Okay, but this is where things get really fascinating. The world those programs were designed for is not the world we live in today. And to understand why, we need to talk about a super important concept, the environment of evolutionary adaptation, or EEA for short. I mean, just look at this timeline. It really puts our modern world into some stunning perspective, doesn't it? If the entire history of our species was squeezed into a 24-hour clock, agriculture would show up at 11:54 p.m. And the Industrial Revolution? That happens in the very last second. For over 99% of our time on this planet, we lived as hunter-gatherers. And since evolution is a painstakingly slow process, the complex programs in our brains were shaped by that long ancestral past. And this leads to one of the most famous and profound insights of the entire field. Our world has changed at a dizzying pace, but our biology, it's stayed relatively static. The result is that we are all navigating our modern, high-tech world with a mind that was adapted for the Pleistocene. This mismatch between our ancient psychology and our modern environment is the source of so many of our modern problems. And this mismatch creates some fascinating and, let's be honest, often really problematic consequences. Our minds have a powerful program for finding calorie-dense foods, which was a lifesaver in a world of scarcity. But in a modern supermarket overflowing with sugar and fat, that exact same program can lead to chronic disease. Our social instincts were fine-tuned for small, tight-knit groups, not for the vast, anonymous world of social media, with all its tribalism and echo chambers. This brings us to a critical distinction. We aren't consciously trying to maximize our reproductive fitness. That's not how evolution works. We're simply executing the programs, the adaptations that natural selection built into us. We crave sugar not because we think, aha, this will help me pass on my genes, but simply because the sugar-craving program is running, a relic of a time when calories were gold. All right, now we have to tackle the single biggest misconception about evolutionary psychology. It's that old, tired debate of nature versus nurture. But as you're about to see, this new science doesn't pick a side. It offers a whole new way of thinking about this false dichotomy. You know, a lot of people hear the word evolved and they immediately think genetically determined, rigid and unchangeable. They worry that this whole perspective means our genes are our destiny and that our experiences don't really matter. But that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the science is actually saying. Look, this isn't about nature versus nurture. It's a false and totally misleading choice. The entire purpose of our evolved mental machinery is to process information from the environment, from our nurture. The two are not in conflict. They are inextricably intertwined. An evolved program is useless without input from the world, just like a powerful computer is useless without any software or data. And this leads us to this beautiful and kind of counterintuitive insight. Having more evolved, specialized mental tools, more nature, doesn't turn you into some mindless robot. Quite the opposite. It actually allows you to learn more and more effectively from your environment, more nurture. A Swiss Army knife, with all its specialized tools, lets you do far more with the world than a single dull rock ever could. This new way of thinking completely reframes our understanding of instinct. Things we take for granted, like learning a language, falling in love, or caring for a child, those aren't the absence of instinct. They are made possible by incredibly complex instincts. We have specialized programs that are reasoning instincts, learning instincts, and decision instincts, all guiding us in fantastically sophisticated ways. So we end with this provocative thought. If we are all running ancient software on modern hardware, what does that mean for our world? From the polarization of our politics to the anxieties of modern life, understanding this ancient programming is really the key to understanding ourselves. So the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling through a social media feed, just ask yourself, what part of my Stone Age mind is running the show right now?